My question's to the Minister for Earthquake Recovery. Does he agree with the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce Chief Executive Peter Townsend that the reconstruction of Canterbury following the earthquake requires someone, quote, to coordinate and oversee, end quote, reconstruction?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, generally yes. In order to assist a coordinated recovery effort, Mr Brownlee has been appointed as the Government's Minister for Earthquake Recovery. Parliament last night unanimously passed the Canterbury Earthquake Response and Recovery Act, which establishes a recovery commission consisting of the 3 relevant Canterbury mayors plus 4 other appointed experts to help oversee the recovery. The job of the commission will be to provide advice to the government on what steps need to be taken to help the region get on with the job of reconstruction.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Is John Jackson, a construction economist who helped in Darwin following Cyclone Tracy, writes when he said today, we need to learn the lessons from Darwin and New Orleans and appoint a non-political leader who is on the spot, able to allocate resources and to make sure there's no ripping off or price gouging. If so, will the government appoint such a person?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, the government, of course, is open to any advice from people who've had previous experience in these matters. Given that the Act was just passed yesterday and that coordination efforts have been largely successful up until now, including efforts by the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce and Mr Peter Townsend, it would be the government's view that we test the current arrangements to see whether they work. The indications are that they will.
The Honourable Annette.
Mr Speaker, what discussions has he had with building companies undertaking work in the rapid rebuild phase following the Canterbury earthquake? And has he set out the government's approach to companies who ramp up prices and price gouge?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I can't give a detailed answer on behalf of the Minister, but I understand that he has had discussions with building companies and one proposition has been to publish a price list so that members of the public know what ought to be charged, and that price list would be set by the main suppliers.
The Honourable Annette King.
Speaker, does he have any reports of a shortage of building supplies, and has he been advised of the need to ration material and prioritise need in Christchurch? If so, what action is the government planning to ensure there's not only a rapid rebuild but a fair rebuild?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I think the Minister has heard such reports. The process related to the building is that at the moment the banks and the insurance companies and UQC are finalising the processes by which claims will be handled. And then I think the matter the member raises is a pertinent one, because there is not an unlimited supply of building materials or personnel. Once the process of dealing with the claims is settled, there could well then be a discussion about how and whether priority can be allocated to some projects over others. I imagine that won't be that easy, just simply because there are so many distressed householders, and whether they've had a water tank burst or had their house crack in half do regard their circumstances as important and circumstances that should be dealt with quickly.
The Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, is he aware of reports that price gouging and an earthquake premium is already being applied, according to the past president of the Canterbury Builders Association? And if so, what action is the government taking in light of the Prime Minister saying last week that they would take a tough stance on rip-off builders?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm sure that the Minister is in Christchurch, and if there's that kind of behaviour going on, I'm sure he will hear about it. And with respect to government action, the Parliament supported the passing of a piece of legislation that does allow for reasonably extensive government action. The first orders in council pursuant to that government action will be passed probably tomorrow, once they've been consulted with opposition members. So at least there we have a tool that may help us dealing with these issues.
The Honourable Annette King.
Will the government require those in the building industry who receive money from EQC to rebuild houses and businesses to sign an agreement to charge usual prices and not impose a so-called premium for earthquake work?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, that may well be a constructive suggestion, and as I mentioned before, the different parties to the claims process are finalising the process by which they will allocate the claims, and that will, I'm sure, lead on to discussions about how to ensure that there is some control of the costs. After all, both the insurers and the claimants and the wider community have an interest in ensuring that there is not extensive rip-offs.
Question number 2, Colin King.